Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our final review of Atonement from Killswitch Engage. We just spent this entire week listening to this album non-stop. TV Fish, take the floor.
Alright, so after 1 week listening to this album, I must say it's pretty good. And my perspective of this album changed a lot throughout the week, I must say. Because in our first impression, I liked this a lot. Like, it was really strong. Everything felt really good. And then within the first few days, like the weekend through Monday, I was in love with this album. It was ridiculous. I was loving everything about it. And then we had a discussion, which was on Tuesday, I believe. And you made a good point that this album sounds a lot like everything else they've done. Like, it's very standard for Killswitch Engage. Now, my perspective at the time there was that I haven't really listened to a lot of their albums at all, really. I only know like a few other songs. So throughout this week, I decided to listen to the other albums. And unfortunately, I do see where Vile's coming from. Like, this album is pretty similar to the overall sound of everything else. But I did find moments still, like, throughout this album, as I was still putting it on, that I was enjoying. Like, the first track, Unleashed, I think is a sick track. I really enjoyed it when I first heard it, and every time I put it on, every time I started the album, like, I really liked this track. I don't know, it's hard to define how. I just kind of like the kind of open space that's there, but the fact that it still kind of goes hard. And I just kind of found multiple songs were really strong in the sense that they drove forward a lot. I found like there was a lot of double kick, there's a lot of fast stuff that they're throwing in, which it fits in with the rest of their discography, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I kind of threw this album on shuffle, like with all the other albums, and it blended in.
It would blend right in.
But I don't want to knock this album on its own, because if you take it as a part of Killswitch Engage's discography, yes, it does fit in with everything else, but if you look at this album on its own completely, just as it is still pretty good. Like, it's enjoyable to listen to, stuff is catchy, stuff is heavy, like it's a well-made album regardless if it blends into the rest of their discography or not. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah, I feel kind of similar, but like, whenever we say something sounds like the rest of what they do, you know, that can be taken as a good way or a bad way, because there's consistency and then there's redundancy. So how did this feel to me? This, to me, felt like monotony. Felt like they were just rehashing stuff they've done before. I'm not a huge Killswitch fan. I'm not a big fan of their albums or nothing like that. So maybe my opinion is not the greatest to take on this. But as far as the genre goes, I'm a fan of metalcore. I dig it. I like several metalcore bands. This is just not a band that tickles my fancy. But I feel like as far as the genre goes, not the band, but the genre, I feel like they played it very, very safe and standard on this album. And that's something that disappointed me, is that everything felt very by the books. Like, you know when the solos coming, you know when the cleans are coming, you know when, you know how the riffing's gonna go. Everything was just very, very in place, and it made it very boring for me. The first impressions, like you, I was very hopeful. It sounded good on first impressions, but it just got boring for me very fast because everything just felt so standard. Now, normally on a typical week, when we review albums, I keep notes. I write notes throughout the week so I can remember what to talk about in the video. And on average, I'll have not much, maybe like a quarter to a half page of notes. I don't write a lot of notes. Last week was an exception. We Are Not Your Kind, I had 2 pages of notes because that album just had so much going for it. This album, I had 0 notes. 0. Nothing. Because I was so uninspired by what I was hearing. I didn't hear anything that really interested me. And this is one of the very, very, very few times that we've ever reviewed an album in over 2 years of this channel that I didn't put a song on my playlist. Because nothing really reached out and grabbed me. Now, I will say that Unleashed is the best track on the album. The second best song is the second song, The Signal Fire. Okay, those are the 2 songs that I thought, this is good. If the beginning of the album, if the feeling of those 2 songs stretched out for the whole album, I think I'd have a much better opinion, because those 2 songs, even though they're still very standard, very safe, they still stood out more. For whatever reason, maybe the energy, Maybe, you mentioned that they had some double bass and some speed, to them and some aggression. Maybe that was just drawing me in a little more.
I think it was the thrashier element that might have been doing that, because that was also relevant in The Crownless King as well, which is also a pretty good track, and I feel like that also continues a bit of the energy that's in the first two tracks.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That's completely true, but yeah, I don't know. It just, uninspired is the word that I feel like I really got from this.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the biggest things I kind of noticed from this album somewhat quickly was the lyrical content is very motivational. Like, a lot of it, trust yourself, like, become stronger. It's a lot of personal stuff that just kind of is uplifting.
Yeah.
That was kind of the word I used when I talked to you about it before.
Yeah.
During the week. But you made a good perspective. We discussed it can be uplifting to people who, kind of want to hear that kind of message.
Yeah.
But to other people who don't, it kind of feels like it's dragging them down a bit. Like, all they kind of write about is just, I'm upset, I need to get strong.
Yeah, like if you're in a good mood, do you really want to hear about somebody else's problems for 40 minutes? That's kind of what it feels like, right? If you're in a bad mood and you're hearing about somebody else's problems, you can relate, and it also makes you feel better about yourself.
So
right?
that's the thing, though. That's the biggest thing about, like, if you're gonna put on an album for a long amount of time, because there's gonna be some times where you are in a bad mood, and this album is gonna speak to you.
Yeah.
But then there's gonna be some moments, I'm in a really good mood right now. You put this on, it kind of drags you down. So it really just goes back and forth. But one thing I thought about throughout the week, as I'm kind of noting, like, okay, I'm not really in the mood to be hearing this kind of lyrical content, I'm just gonna listen to it for the music itself.
Yeah.
For how it goes. And it's still pretty good in that sense. Musically, it's like they do a good job on this album.
Yeah, I think vocally it's very good. Yes. I like the vocals. The vocals are very nice. Lyrically, I really didn't like it. I know that that's the style of this band. They do emotional type of lyrics and very uplifting lyrics, and that's cool. I don't mind that, but it's just not for me. It's not something that tickles my fancy. So I trained myself early on in the week to kind of forget about hearing the lyrics and just focus on the music, but that still didn't do it for me.
That was something that kind of slightly disappointed me, because I don't know this band as well. I put this album on, uplifting lyrics, and then I looked at the other albums, I'm like, oh, it's all like the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
like
just
lyrically.
a theme. It's the theme.
It's a theme. It's okay. It's fine. Like, if I'm down in the dumps, I'll put on something like this, and it'll help me feel better. Like, it works. Yeah.
And a little contradictory to what I'm just saying, I think I Am Broken Too, which is the single, the quote-unquote ballad of the album, which is one of the most emotional songs on the album, that did grow on me throughout the week. I started gravitating towards that quite a bit. Not even sure why. I started, like, the lyrics, I was learning the lyrics, I guess, even though I was trying not to really pay attention to them. And I caught myself singing along with it a couple times. So that's something. That's something. It's a song I normally wouldn't gravitate towards to, but maybe it was because it's such a short song, so it made it much more tolerable for me.
Yeah. And also the catchiness of it just kind of like gets into your head, because it is pretty catchy, I would say.
It's catchy, and it's also kind of placed nicely in the middle of the album, so it kind of breaks up the flow a bit. So it's like you shuffle the album, that's the song that breaks up the flow, so it kind of stands out a bit. It's like a little bit of a sore thumb that sticks out.
And even then, like, given the track listing the way it is, this is a really good bridge between the first and second half of the album.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, exactly. But yeah, I don't know. There's other decent songs on the album, but nothing that I really wish there was more positive I can say. I really do. I don't want to shit on any album ever. I really don't. I'm not trying to, but I don't know what to say that was good or exciting. You know what I mean? There's no parts of any songs where I can say, oh my god, this part in this song, you gotta check it out, or this awesome part. Like, there was a couple decent parts where the vocals were layered kind of interestingly, but I'm just like, I've heard this a bazillion times. Like, yeah, they did it okay in this song, but whatever. It is there.
Yeah, it's still, I think it's good for what it is, but I wouldn't say it's exceptional.
Yeah, it's very safe.
But I definitely cannot call this a bad album. And with that being said, let's rate it. So what do you rate it?
All right, so yeah, what you just said there is a statement that I'm going to reuse. And this is not a bad album. Despite my feelings, despite what I'm saying about it, despite me not being able to find anything superb about it, it's not bad. It's a well-made album, it's well-recorded, it's well-performed, whatever. But again, I can't say this enough, it's very, very standard and by the books. There's nothing special about it, so it's middle of the pack for me, but I think slightly higher In mid, I'm going with a 6.
All right, a 6 from Vile. Now I'm a little bit similar, but I guess a little bit more on the enjoyable side because this album isn't super exceptional, but I still enjoyed listening to it. I didn't fall in love with this album. Well, I mean, I did in the first few days, but then I kind of fell out of love with this album and thought it was good, but not great. But it's still, musically, I was still enjoying some of the things I was hearing. There was stuff that kind of pop out a little bit. So for me, this gets a 6.5. Not a 7, because a 7 I feel like is a score you'd give when the album is really solid, but it isn't at the Toe Tag level. But I enjoyed it, and it had some cool stuff, but I didn't really love it, so it's a 6.5.
Not bad. 6 for me, 6.5 from TV Fish. But as usual, we want to know what you guys think. So leave your comments below. Let us know what you guys think of the album after a week. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
And we'll see you guys very shortly on the next one. Later.